great to see everybody here. It's fantastic to see spring on campus, so it seems like a good time to be doing a spring update. Let me just explain why we have added this town hall. Now, for those of you who've been here a long time, I understand there was a time prior to my arrival where there were 2 town halls a year, but since I've been here, we've been doing 1. We've added this to provide an opportunity to report back on where we're going, and also to have an opportunity to have a town hall that students can attend, because typically the timing of our town hall in the fall, we don't get any student participation at all. So from now on, in addition to the Welcome Back town hall that we do at the start of each fall, we're going to use this one to talk about plans and our progress that we've made over this year. And as our 10th year draws to a close, I want to reflect on some of the very noteworthy achievements and events of this past year, and to congratulate everyone on what I believe has been a really fantastic year for the campus. I'll also be introducing some new faces on campus and talk just a little bit about some of the things that are developing and where we're going. So I guess start at the top. As you all know, UBC welcomed a new president last year. And in his installation address in September, Professor Arvind Gupta laid out his priorities for the university, which include positioning UBC for excellence, increasing support for research, and raising the university's standing amongst the world's global institutions. And I really couldn't agree more with his ambitions. He's showing great interest in this campus and in the part that we can play here in building UBC to the next level. He is regularly in the Okanagan and often on campus, and I'm sure that many of you have already had an opportunity to interact with him. And he clearly sees the great potential that this place and we hold for UBC. And I'm sure I join all of you in looking forward to working with him to further enhance our campus in teaching and learning, research, and in community engagement, and in turn increasing the university's impact in the Okanagan and the wider BC interior. Building on his career experience as CEO of Mitacs, one of the things that he's prioritizing is expanding opportunities for experiential learning. And like us, he recognizes the transformative impact such opportunities can have. And I'm pleased to note that experiential learning is fast emerging as one of the main threads in the academic planning arising from our Aspire consultations. Now, just briefly, to remind you of what the outcome of Aspire was, there's clearly an appetite for UBC Okanagan to be a model of innovation and interdisciplinary learning. And some of the themes that emerged specifically from Aspire was that we would provide learning opportunities grounded in innovative teaching, in application in the community, and in our research. That we would be co-creating knowledge across boundaries, fostering innovative and entrepreneurial approaches to social and economic development, and that we would be building strong connections between our students, faculty, alumni, and our communities, and that this campus will be an exemplar of a healthy campus. So since we completed the Aspire process last year, we've been making progress on several fronts and implementing some of the recommendations presented in that report. Right now, the faculties, deans, and provosts are working in various ways towards program innovation and exploring a possible expansion of experiential learning platforms, both within programs and across faculties. And it's likely that an initial set of recommendations will be forthcoming this spring. Faculties are also beginning to identify and build new opportunities for interdisciplinary learning through collaborative cross-faculty initiatives, including, I think, a very exciting pilot, an interdisciplinary program offered with a local community on the issues of water sustainability, being available to a group of graduate students. The content and the delivery of this program are all team-based, and the students will be taking charge of their own learning with the professors and the community experts as guides on the side. This kind of thing is just the kind of innovative experiential program that we can do here because of the kind of community we are. And it will give our students an opportunity to work on real issues with a real community on something that is important around the world. I'm a passionate supporter of this pilot project because I believe it's precisely the kind of programming that we need to live up to the aspirations that we set ourselves. And I want to congratulate all who've been involved in the process. And I should say that represents nearly all of the faculties and schools on this campus. And that's a truly wonderful thing, that there's a group working right across the campus. But it's not really about our aspirations or my expectations, is it? It's really about meeting the needs and the expectations of our students and the communities that we serve. And to do that, it's essential that we deliver quality programs designed with that in mind. Now, sadly, this last year, we admitted fewer students than the government funds us for. Now, you can imagine that's not exactly where we'd like to be when we set ourselves bold ambitions. And this coming year, unfortunately, the forecast is that we will still fall below that government funding target. We will be closer than last year, but we have a hole to fill. Now, why is that happening? Personally, I think this is the best campus in the world. Maybe I'm a little biased. But simply put, what's happening is that too few qualified students are choosing to apply to come to UBC Okanagan. And the shortfall is most seriously represented in the BA and the BSc. And in fact, in other areas, we have quite robust numbers of applicants. But across North America, and indeed in other jurisdictions around the world, there's a trend of declining interest in the traditional BA and some BSc programs. It's perhaps not surprising when you think of some of the press that we see about people being encouraged to train for jobs and needing skills rather than needing education. And we know, of course, that our education provides precisely the kind of skills that our graduates need to be really successful and have an impact in the world. So if we want to be successful in the long term, we have to find a way to attract the best and the brightest to apply to come here. From our own backyard, of course, and from around the world, because we know that the size of our local community will only deliver about a third of the students that we need to fill this campus. And those students, being the best and the brightest, of course, have many, many choices. They can write their own ticket. They can go wherever they want. They're the ones we want. And right now, they're being attracted to programs being developed at other institutions. I should mention that whilst UBC Vancouver saw a similar decline in applications and numbers in arts last year to our campus, this year applications are up significantly for their BA. And it is in fact because of the development of a very innovative program that partners the opportunity to do management studies along with the traditional Vancouver BA. We're going to need to create these kinds of attractive options if we want to be competitive in today's world and in the future. We need programs that will appeal to today's secondary students and their families, and that will make them want to come here. And that means we have to start doing some things differently. And for this reason, we're investing in developing core academic priorities in learning and research on the campus, and in taking on initiatives that will bring the two UBC campuses closer together, allowing us to even more leverage the very valuable UBC brand, including in innovation, in international recruitment, and in research. Because as much as we need great academic programs to attract the world's best students, we also need to build our research strength and impact and our reputation. The past year was the most successful to date in terms of inputs to research on this campus and to innovation, and we're building on a very positive trend over the past few years. You don't build a reputation in a day. And in fact, a great university builds a reputation over 100 years or even longer. So we have a ways to go. But I'm pleased to be able to announce today the selection of a vice principal research, who is Professor Philip Barker. Phil is currently a molecular biologist and biochemist and professor in the departments of neurology and neurosurgery and anatomy and cell biology at McGill University. He's scientific director of the Montreal Neurological Institute and Hospital, where he's a Canada Research Chair in molecular neuroscience. And he recently has been serving as acting Vice President Research at McGill. We are delighted that he will be joining us on this campus. Phil was raised in the Okanagan, so there you can see why he has decided he's going to throw his hat in with us. He got his BSc from SFU, his PhD from the University of Alberta. He did postdoctoral work at Stanford before joining McGill, and he'll be working very closely on our campus and in Vancouver in partnership with the Vice President Research and International to further develop the research and innovation capacity on our campus. And we look forward to welcoming him and his wife Christine to our community when he joins us on the 1st of August. So with Phil's arrival in sight, our valiant Vice Principal Research Pro Tem, Gordon Binstead, will be able to remove one of his 3 hats. As you may know, he's an interim dean in the Faculty of Education, and of course he's Dean of Health and Social Development. So I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Gordon. I have a feeling Gord is not here today. He was returned from Europe, he's got a bad cold. He has been in this interim role for 2 years. Remarkably, because of course you may understand our search for the VPR was somewhat delayed. He certainly was not in any way a stand-in. He was fully engaged in the process and has been right at the front line with initiatives like STAR and has made an enormous contribution on the campus in pushing forward the research and innovation agenda that came out of that Aspire process. So I would ask that in Gord's absence, we all say a huge thank you, hold the applause, because he's not here to hear it. And his work has laid a great foundation for Phil Barker, who will come on and pick up the torch in August and continue. We plan to continue to support and enhance research and innovation activities on this campus by investing in people, by leveraging and topping up funding for postdocs and PhDs, continuing to emphasize community engagement, and focusing on the things that we can do really, really well. I know that Phil Barker is very excited to join us and to get going in this endeavor. Our Senate recently approved 2 new research institutes that each have community engagement at their heart, and I was delighted to see these 2 approved. The first is the Institute for Community Engaged Research, or ICER, dedicated to socially engaged research with communities nationally, internationally, and right here in the Okanagan. It's going to be a hub for building community relationships, for collaboration, for knowledge creation and exchange, and it's going to work across both disciplinary and institutional boundaries, and I'm looking forward to watching as this new piece of our campus develops. The second, also established by Senate in January, is the Regional Socioeconomic Development Institute of Canada, which brings together scholars from diverse disciplines to push theoretical and empirical frontiers to better understand the opportunities for regional development and to advance evidence-based path to building healthy economies. And this is something that really is at the heart of what we here at UBC bring to the interior. And that is our capacity to think about new ways in health, new ways in social development, new ways in economy and business that will actually help leverage all of our communities to that next level. They're building on work that's been going on, of course, for a very long time, since, in fact, before UBC was here, of course, but includes work now at STAR with the Healthy City Partnership with the City of Kelowna and Interior Health. And it's certainly the kind of direction that the folks who put this campus here would see that was the right way for UBC to be going. Having introduced a new VPR, I'd also like to take a moment to call your attention to Professor Wisdom Tete's recent appointment as Dean of the Irving K. Barber School of Arts and Science. As most of you know, Wisdom is an internationally acclaimed scholar and currently Dean of the Faculty of Creative and Critical Studies. He'll take up his new post on July 1st. I couldn't be more delighted to be working with Wisdom in this new role, and I thank him enormously for taking it on. So thank you, Wisdom. And as we welcome Wisdom to his new role, it's appropriate that Provost Cynthia Matheson and I take this moment to thank Professor Barbara Rutherford for her exceptional service as acting Dean of the school. So please join me in recognizing Barb. Where's Barb here? The campus is also about to see a change in the finance and operations portfolio. Earlier this year, we announced that Michael Shakespeare, our AVP Finance and Operations, is going to be moving on to take a leadership role at the Faculty of Medicine in Vancouver as the Executive Director of Finance and Operations, effective April 1. I wish that were a joke, but it's not. Later this afternoon, we'll be hosting a farewell open house for Michael in the foyer of the admin building outside the bookstore to celebrate Michael's time here as AVP and to wish him well wrestling down the budget issues of the Faculty of Medicine. I know that anyone who's had the pleasure of working closely with Michael will agree that he has been a truly wonderful asset for our campus, and I'd like to thank him sincerely for his dedicated service to UBC here. And thank you, Michael, again. And please join us for the reception. It'll be from 3 to 4:30 in the foyer, and we'll give him a roaring send-off. While I'm making acknowledgements, I would be remiss if I did not also thank our students for the foresight and generosity that they have shown in the result of last year's referendum on student support for the expansion of our library. A huge thank you, a $10 million thank you to the UBC SUO, Rocky Kim, and all the other student leaders on campus who helped to get the vote out and got us an 85% majority in favor of expanding our library to provide better learning opportunities and space for students to work. You can be sure that UBC and our great development staff are working hard to raise the additional funding that we will need to complete the project in a timely manner. And I'm looking forward to the students continuing to play an active role in shaping the future of their library and learning spaces. It's going to provide much needed additional study space and change the face of the core of the campus. And that's just one of the projects that's taking shape as the campus master planning process rolls out. Now, you've probably all noticed the master planning process going on. There have been lots of consultations on campus and in the community. The plan is taking into account the possibilities for growth and development of existing programs and new programs on campus, opportunities for research and industry partnerships, both in the academic core and in a potential future innovation precinct, transportation updates, including a pedestrianized campus core and an enhanced transit exchange, increased parking capacity, and cycling and pedestrian safety and access to campus. And now that I have mentioned the word cycling, I have your attention. You know, the other week I was asked if I had a superpower, if I could have a superpower, what would it be? My answer at the time was flying so that I could get to Vancouver for meetings more effectively than with Air Canada or WestJet. However, I think perhaps my second choice for a superpower should have been an instant solution to safe cycling access to campus, because unfortunately, none appear to exist. But I expect we'll come to this in the Q&A, but just let me say a few things to position where we're at. As many of you know, in early February, the Supreme Court ordered us to do more to ensure that Curtis Road private easement is only used by students, faculty and staff on days they have business in the Reichwald Health Science Building or the Creative and Critical Studies Building. And 3 weeks later, the court approved our plan intended to improve compliance with access restrictions. Note also that our neighbors seem to be interested in doing their own efforts to improve compliance with those restrictions as well. So we took the action we did to ensure that we did not lose access to Curtis Road easement completely, because that was the stick that was being beaten at us, that if we did not get our act in order, that we would actually have that easement closed to us forever. There has, in fact, been no change in the rules governing the use of the easement that existed prior to February, only in the enforcement of the court's ruling and to the degree that that is possible. Please be assured that this issue is top of mind for this administration and the administration in Vancouver, and that we are actively working with the city, with our neighbors, and with local government to find better solutions. I completely support the notion that this campus requires and deserves safe and legal access for cyclists and pedestrians. Indeed, it should have been in place in 1993 when the Okanagan University campus was first built. And it is a shame that that did not happen, but we cannot go back in time. Regarding the option of a gravel path traversing the West Campus, this has been presented to the Board of Governors, and a considerable sum of money has been invested in exploring the planning, the construction, and the legal issues surrounding building such a path. One critical barrier to this path is that, in addition to the usual local and provincial approvals that one might need, it also requires federal government approval per the Migratory Birds Act, a process which we are informed could take at least a year, and then construction can only take place when the Robert Lake area is not occupied by the protected migratory birds. These are slim windows to work with. And I have to say, when it was presented to the Board of Governors, the board were aware that John Hindle Drive was slated to begin construction in 2015. The sad, sad reality is that the municipal roadways shown in the plans when the OUC campus was first imagined have not yet been built, 22 years on. A little good news. Our lobbying efforts over the past 2 years have succeeded in accelerating the municipality's timeline for the construction of John Hindle Drive, with both federal and provincial support now. And we expect the municipality to continue to improve multimodal transportation opportunities around the campus until we are adequately served. We are very actively working with all levels of government to achieve this. And I will frankly say that sometimes when I walk into a room with our local government representatives, I can see them cringing because they know it's going to be either safe access or clean water, my two favorite topics. But as the cycling issue demonstrates, it takes an entire community to deliver on the promise of an outstanding institution like UBC here in the Okanagan. And it takes a long time. Everyone, from our campus planners, to our student services and recruitment staff, to our health and wellness, HR, finance teams, faculty and students are all essential to ensuring that this institution is able to deliver on the promise of a UBC campus here in the Okanagan. And as we approach the 10th anniversary, let's continue the conversation on really reaching that goal to be an outstanding place of innovation, excellent research, and exceptional learning opportunities. And let's remember that those of us who are here today and those of us who were here before us at this institution and its predecessor are really the pioneers. What we're building here will define what this campus is like when it celebrates its 100th anniversary. And let's make sure that what we build here is the very best that we can imagine, and that we build it to last, and that is a structure that is both robust and flexible, so that we can adapt and become stronger and stronger as the years go by, and become an equal partner in every way to the other campus in Vancouver. I'd like to congratulate everyone who's here on all the great work that's been done this year, and there are so many people I can see here who've really been doing exceptional things. And I'd like to thank you all for what you do to really make UBC what it is today and what it will be in the future. Thank you all for listening to me.
Very good. Thank you very much, Deborah. Take a seat on the other side of the table, and we'll take a few questions. I have some that were submitted in advance that I can start with, but let's just see if are there any questions from the audience to start us off with. If you have a question, please come to the microphone so that everyone can hear you. Hopefully that won't be a disincentive. Here we go. Let's take our first question.
I have a question, and I was wondering if you'd be good enough to delineate for us what you consider to be the top, say, 3 or 4 obligations that the university has towards its students.
I would say the obligations that we have are to deliver them a world-class education, and to provide them the supports that they need to launch themselves into the next stage of their career, whether it is further study or into professions or directly into the workforce, that we would provide them with that, and that we would be forever their alma mater, and that they would be a major part of this institution for the rest of their lives.
The position that the president has taken is to move UBC back up the standings in terms of international universities. We had a comment about how we've slid back over the last several years. What's of interest to me is what's the metrics that are used by those rating systems. When I look at them, they don't particularly seem to be particularly emphasizing the point that was just made, the point about students. They focus on things that are probably easier in some ways to delineate: grants, number of people winning Nobel Prizes, those kinds of things. And it's not that I don't want the university to maintain its reputation as one of the best research universities, if not North America, in the world. But I'm always concerned when people put that focus one way, the other side of the coin, that is the outstanding education experience that UBC Okanagan provides, will somehow get short-shrifted. Do you have any sense? Can you alleviate my concerns?
I will say you are correct that the reputation of universities, which is what the rankings really measure, is derived from the easily measurable, which tends to be research and impact and the, as you say, the Nobel Prizes of the alumni, etc. It is clear. Firstly, I think there's a certain sense of short-termism about going for a short-term win, because I actually think that it's going to be a rather long-term prospect to move significantly, deliberately, significantly, one way or the other. The question of our commitment to the quality of our academic experience is entirely to us. as a campus community. We are, I think, very fortunate to have our own Senate, and our Senate has clearly demonstrated a great interest in the quality of the learning environment, and in fact the Aspire report, which I think was very timely, coming as it did around the time of the arrival of our new president, very clearly suggests that this campus really does have a sense of it offering a very high quality educational experience. We just need to persuade more students that we're actually doing that.
Any other questions from the audience at this time? Well, I had some that were submitted in advance by students and faculty and staff. And the first one, you've actually spent some time speaking to this one already, but it's about cycling, and it's about Curtis Road, and some of the options that may be being explored. People are concerned that, for example, this summer when the bus routes may not be running in the same fashion that they do during the school term, how they're going to get to campus. And perhaps you could elaborate on some of the things that are being explored for the near term and the longer term for access to campus.
Well, the Curtis Road story is really very sad, and it's long. And there have been moments where one suddenly feels one sees a way forward. At one point, it was the railway overpass where we were going to have access, and just about when the city was about to start work that we have already paid for to put this new access route into play, the company that was leasing the railway line went bankrupt, and subsequent to that, we've been in a situation where nothing could be done with that access point. But we are seeing movement in terms of the city and other municipalities acquiring the rights to the rail line and the rail bed, and that will open up again the opportunity that we consider that as a possible route. That would be a good alternative for people who are using the highway right now and would then be able to come off and come directly onto campus. But this is a question, and unfortunately it's the same issue around Curtis Road. These are private property issues, and much as we would like to just, say our needs are more important than your private property, that's not the way that Canada works. And so we're waiting for the correct approvals for that. We are really always in active conversations about what solutions there could be to the private road that is known as Curtis Road. And we have ongoing conversations with our neighbors and with the city. And we are doing our best to come up with short-term, as in very quick, doable solutions. I think the recent judgment has focused people's attention on the issue, which has opened up another round of conversations. And we also have the, we hope, soon to be developed John Hindle, which will add another kind of option as well. And I believe when the John Hindle Road opens, that will also do a little piece to improve bus service from the Glenmore area, which is, I understand, not that well served currently by the bus system.
Very good. And on a side note on that, there has been, we've had a universal bus pass program for students for a number of years. What are the prospects for a faculty and staff bus pass initiative?
Well, I have to thank my colleague Curtis Markham, who's sitting here, who he's been in discussion with the city on us, or the Transit Authority, on us being able to provide a bus pass for staff. There would be a small potential saving for staff members, and it is unfortunately not apparently the city's top priority. And they, despite our request, have not been willing to enter into a partnership with us to offer such a permit that would parallel the way that the Students' Union has partnered with the city to offer a student's pass. So again, we're still working on this with the city. It would be great to see such an opportunity, but it really would have to be up to the Transit Authority. I think it's the city that runs that Transit Authority. So we have to continue the discussions to try and get that in place.
Very good.
Any other question? No?
Well, I have one more that's a little bit.
It's not about bikes.
No, it's not about bikes this time. It's something a bit broader and something that I think impacts a lot of what we do as a university, and that's internationalization. We know that the province has mandated more international student placements in British Columbia, and UBC is pursuing that. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of internationalization, having more international students here at this campus, and the impacts that has in our future plans?
So right now we have just over 10% of our students are international, and we would like to see that number go up closer to 20 or 25% even, because we know that very diverse communities of learning provide a much richer learning environment for all of our students. So there's an academic reason, and when we look at universities that are considered to be global leaders, typically they have at least 20, 25%, maybe more, of their students from outside of their home nation. So that's the first academic reason. The second reason is that these students, of course, actually pay the full freight. And the current fees that an international student pays are around about $24,000, and they will continue to go up. We are charging a little bit less, in fact a considerable piece less, than McGill and the U of T, which are the two Canadian universities that we compare ourselves with. And internationally, we probably could be raising our fees to their levels, and we would still attract excellent international students. And of course, when we take international fees, we provide a significant amount of funding to ensure that international students can receive healthy scholarships should they not have the resources but be academically qualified to come here. And on this campus, we have several students, international students, who are on full cost scholarships, which is quite remarkable, including their living expenses, etc. So we see it as a very good thing. It is one area where we have some potential to relieve the budget stresses that we have now. And some of you may have attended the town hall recently, Heads Up recently, where we talked about the budget. We're in a tight spot. Our budget has been frozen and since really the beginning of this campus, and has been declining for the last 2 years and will decline next year. We are funded today at the rate of about $9,500 per student from the provincial government. The Vancouver campus is funded at over 50% more per student than our campus. So they start from a different place. We have great difficulty, I would say, in imagining a future where we could continue to provide the kind of quality of learning experience and also the opportunities for research that really define UBC unless we can find additional sources of revenue. And you may know that the other campus has over $1 billion of endowments, and that we have recently completed a $1.5 billion fundraising campaign. And I will say that less than 100 million of that 1.5 billion is going to be landing on this campus. No criticism of our Vancouver colleagues intended, but it's the issue of being a startup. So we have a ways to go, and certainly increasing international student numbers, raising our profile internationally will increase our opportunities to really play at the level, both in our academic programs and in research, that will help us become better known and will bring us more of the highly qualified students that we really need to see on this campus. So I see, to go back to Jan's question and the other question about what is the, what are we doing about the quality of the academic program, they really go together. We can't just say, well, we're not going to do research or we're not going to be engaged internationally. We'll focus on offering good academic programs, because we don't have the money to do that alone. We need to be working on all of the prongs. And the international piece is very important.
Very good, thank you. We'll go back to the audience. Any more questions?
follow up that last piece about the international, because many people, very cynical people, talk about how international students are cash cows. I've been on the Senate for a number of years, and I just want to say that I think UBC's approach to this is admirable. UBC intentionally diversifies the target areas. They don't do what some places have done, target the ones that have a lot of money and bring all the students in. So we've done a great job in that regard. And also this idea of bringing students here so that we can educate them and go back to their native countries and then provide the skill set to help their economies. In this process, though, when we bring people here and we get the extra money, you've identified a 10% lift as the goal. That 10% lift is going to put a tremendous stress on this particular campus as it exists right now. Now, I'm not suggesting we're going to get the 10% next week, but there needs to be a clear consideration of what that's going to do in terms of infrastructure, and also, and I think this is really important from a sort of moral, ethical perspective, we don't bring them in just to bring them in. They will require additional services far and beyond what our domestic students have. Yeah. So can you articulate a bit the plan around those two issues? Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Yes, so the campus master planning process is actually, of course, it must imagine that the campus is growing because everything about universities in the last 1,000 years tells us they tend to get bigger over time. And currently we have 3 next phase construction projects actually going through the active planning process, and a couple of others that are at the beginning of the business case planning process. So the first one I talked about was the library, the expansion of the current library, which will basically build out over what is now Lot A, parking area. The other is what we're calling Okanagan Commons, which will be a large multi-purpose building with both a bigger food service area that will serve the residence area and the students, and that is anticipated to be built just north of this building here, and will create, I think, a nice courtyard feeling between the two buildings. That will also include a large lecture theatre, which will take some of the stress that we now have of offering multiple sections of some of the large first-year classes. So it will enhance our capacity to deliver programs more effectively. And it will also have some more of our student service facilities housed there, and that will certainly help with our international students. And then the third component that's at the active planning stage is the expansion of residence space. Again, an important piece, because when folks send their kids from another country, they really like to think that they can live on campus and have a good experience. So those 3 are actively in planning. And we have, behind that, we have expanding the gymnasium space, and then some other potential development around the idea of innovation, potentially revenue generating if we were to build some space that might attract partner companies, for example. So has that answered the planning piece?
I guess it's the piece about the services to international students, not just
yes.
the physical, but the services that have been identified.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've had some great conversations with our international student service people, and I think we're getting together for coffee soon to actually talk about what we might be doing to improve and go further. And I think with Vantage College planning to develop a piece of their session here on campus, we're going to really see ourselves kicked to another level in terms of actually the kinds of services that we want to provide and what we can do here. Yeah. Madam Provost.
If I could add something as well. From the start, when the tuition discussion has arisen, there's been a lens that the deans have had on this discussion as far as we've been involved, which is actually quite a bit. And it goes to the heart of, I think, some of the principles that you may be hinting at. For example, what will be the impact on the diversity of the student population, and what type of extra supports do those students need, including the possibility of shaping up some special bursaries or scholarships. So it's actually on our radar, and we have a cross-campus steering committee where, gosh, I think we meet every week. And frankly, our deans have been very good with keeping those principles foremost in the front. So I think as this discussion evolves, including consultations with the students, which have to happen under policy, it will feed into the larger larger discussion with what can we do on the ground to ensure that we're actually recruiting in the most ethical way, which I think is what your question is. So the discussion and the principles are there. We don't actually have all of the package together yet because it's evolving, but I've been actually fairly pleased to have the deans involved at that early stage, and we continue to be involved as this discussion goes on. So I hope that's a bit helpful to flesh it out.
Very good, thank you. You mentioned collaboration with Vantage College, for example. Could you talk a little bit about the relationships that we have with our other post-secondary institutions throughout the interior and how you see those relationships evolving?
Well, we have certainly reached out to the other post-secondaries from the north right through to, I was recently on the phone to Nelson the other day talking with people who would be interested in having a partnership with us in their community. And Janice Larson, who's sitting over there, who's with the Ministry of Technology, Innovation and Citizen Services, has been working for the past year on an inventory of the innovation ecosystem in the interior and actually looking at how complementary our post-secondary institutions are and the breadth and stretch that we have right the way through the interior. It's laying the groundwork for even more collaborations. I know that our engineering faculty have been working on articulation opportunities with UNBC, with Thompson Rivers, and we have them already with Okanagan College. We have articulations in various other areas, and more we see the potential, and I would say the necessity, that if we're really going to serve this region, that we collaborate to make best use of the resources that we have. I say there would be really no benefit to having, if you say we have 3 universities in the region, 3 independent, mediocre, small programs that were duplicates of each other, rather than picking areas where we can get together and with our pooled resources really develop things that would serve the region much better and provide opportunities for students perhaps to, in the case of engineering or the health programs, to begin their studies close to home and then to move either here or to UNBC or even to other colleges or universities in the region as we expand the opportunities. And I think we see them very clearly, increasing demand in the health professions, not just medicine, but that we might be doing more in those areas. And of course, potential to expand our offerings in areas like engineering related to the resource sector. So there are a lot of things going on. Yeah.
Very good. Turn to the audience one more time. Are there any further questions? Waiting.
They want to enjoy the sunshine.
Well, very good. Thank you very much, Professor Buzzard. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Buzzard. It's always a pleasure.